Greetings, fellow mortals. I remember when Rick and Morty felt like a phenomenon. The first two seasons took me by surprise about how perfectly they were executed. I can go back to those first few episodes and watch them at any time. The wait for season 3 felt like it took forever. But then the season 3 premiere happened out of nowhere. It stunned me to my core. I was so impressed by everything about that event. The animation, the writing, and the timing were perfect. It came out on April Fool's Day, after all. There wasn't a member of my friend group that didn't talk about the show and speculate how the season was going to go. Of course, no one that I knew personally was part of the toxic part of the fan base. I did go on a small adventure myself to find the Szechuan sauce when McDonald's brought it back. There were a few McDonald's on the road between my work and my house at the time, so I popped in to see if the sauce was available. Of course, the whole restaurant was packed and there was no sauce at all, but I didn't jump on the table or scream. I just politely asked if they had the sauce and then turned to leave when they said that they didn't. If anyone I knew in real life actually did freak out about that, I probably wouldn't have ever talked to them again. I just wanted the packet as a joke to use for a few weeks. But even though I didn't get to personify the meme, I at least had the show to watch. Except season 3 didn't live up to my expectations. And actually, no, it wasn't Pickle Rick that threw me off. That episode did have a case of the buzz killers, in which a piece of entertainment chastises you for having fun. I call it the Dishonored effect. But I did enjoy that episode. Want to know which episode that I always hated though? Vindicators 3. It was the boys before the boys existed on television, and I've grown to dislike that show more as time goes on. I was way too nice about the boys in my video about it. The mocking of superheroes felt played out as soon as it happened. The jokes didn't really land with me, and I didn't like the character development of Rick or Morty. It just wasn't that good. Most of the rest of the season was at least a little bit better, but the episodes didn't live up to the first two seasons. And of course, the Rick Lantis mix-up proved to be the best episode of the entire show, so there was hope even as the season stumbled around in a confused mess. Unfortunately, things only got progressively worse. With each new season, the one-off episodes felt played out and boring. When overarching story events happened, it felt as though the writers hated doing it. In fact, that's what I felt about the show as more time went on. Season 4 hated itself. Season 5 really hated itself. And Season 6 feels as though it's just ready to die already. But it won't. Rick and Morty is destined to eventually become like almost all of the adult animated shows. It will keep going until it's a shell of its former self. It will be like Family Guy or The Simpsons. You might even argue that it's already gotten to that point. But why? Why is it that the show crumbled? Well, the first problem is that it's difficult to stay interested in one project for a long period of time, especially one that takes so much effort to write, voice act, and animate. Burnout is definitely a real thing. It's one of the aspects of writing that I can understand, actually. The novel that I've been promoting in all of my videos is the first of 15 books. Almost 9 of those books have already been written. It's easy to lose interest in something after long periods of time if you don't watch yourself. George R. R. Martin. The next problem is that the show has gone through many changes with the writing staff. Rick and Morty started airing in 2013, meaning that it could have been in production in 2012 and maybe in pre-production in 2011. That means that it's existed for a decade. Gravity Falls, a pseudo-cousin show in many ways, started during a similar time frame and has long since ended. Writers, animators, and other staff have come and gone with Rick and Morty. Such a problem makes keeping a consistent vision close to impossible. Except that's where the show's creators, showrunners, and directors should come into play. Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon are the ones that should be directing this train. This was their idea and is their baby. If you don't know, Rick and Morty started out as a Back to the Future parody. Obviously, it grew to be so much more than that. In fact, the show was part of my introduction to nihilism and philosophy as I entered into adulthood. I do hold it in a fond place in my heart, but it's easy to see that they've lost the plot. The passion has faded away into a money-making machine. But that's what Rick and Morty is at this point. The merchandising and licensing money is too good to give up. The creators and Adult Swim will never let this show go as long as it continues to make money. But the problem is that this is a show that needed to end at some point. It was easy to see in season 3 and 4 that Rick and Morty was struggling to figure out what its future would be. It wanted to be episodic, but its best episodes were focused on an overarching plot. They wanted to spit on its serialization, but then found itself stuck in it. So it tried to sit on the fence and then got impaled because all of the characters remained stagnant. Every story is built on its characters. Storytelling is the art of sharing the human experience, and that's what the first 2 seasons felt like. You could understand the entire family's perspectives. You saw these terrible, unfulfilled people and wanted them to be better. Unfortunately, they didn't grow at all. At most, Morty and Summer became more jaded, but for the most part, these people were stuck with stagnant personalities, were locked into their roles, and never remembered any of the lessons that they had previously learned. It's like Dan Harmon's other show, Community. I loved the first few seasons of that show. I loved the characters and the storylines, and my favorite thing about it was that we were following a group of people who chose to stick with each other. It's not like they were related by blood or anything. They could have stopped being friends at any point. Unfortunately, none of them ever evolved, changed, or learned anything. They were forever stuck. Now, you might argue that this sounds a lot like real life. After all, people forget their lessons and they tend to go back to old habits. And that's true, but here's the thing. Storytelling is supposed to be a lot more interesting than real life. You're supposed to see people change and adapt their strategies to face their obstacles in new ways. If you want great examples of that, then look at Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. Now, at this point, you might be pointing out that those were dramas. We're focusing on comedies here. Alright then, what about The Office or Parks and Rec? Those shows had characters who slowly adapted. Their relationships evolved a little bit with each episode, and you felt that change as time went on. Instead, Rick and Morty became more like the Brady Bunch, Family Matters, or Full House. Actually, no. The characters in those shows technically evolved more than any of the characters in Rick and Morty. So what could have been done to fix these problems? Well, there are 2 ways to go. Either you make it like old South Park where nothing really mattered and you're just mocking everything, or you take the story seriously. You take the characters seriously. Seasons 1, 2, and the start of 3 can remain exactly the same, but then you have to start developing the characters. Show Rick internally conflict with the fact that he's scared of being attached to his family. Show Morty grow to be more consistently cold and only wanting to do the things that make him feel good. Show Summer value herself more, become more competent, and become the leader of the family that we saw snippets of earlier. Show Jerry try to become a better person after losing his family. Depending on where you want to go, you could make him become a reliable man that's beloved by the audience, or a miserable failure that dies in shame. Either one works. You could even keep in this weird Beth storyline, except do it a lot better where they actually show her being smart instead of just telling us, and then she acts like the dumbest person in the world after we're told that she's really smart. Tie everything in together with the evil Morty and the bird person storylines. A lot of the resolution to those stories were fine. The problem was that it was impossible to care when you know that this won't change the characters, the world as a whole, or even the family dynamics. Everything will be exactly the same. It will never end, and it's boring. Because the conclusion should be the ultimate goal. Everything needs to end eventually. A story can't be good if it can't reach its conclusion. Every tale needs to know where to stop. The Office's final seasons failed because the show went on for far too long. Gravity Falls remains beloved because it ended at the perfect time. Imagine if Rick and Morty had an idea about where it wanted to go with the conclusion. Imagine if they carefully constructed all of the stories to develop the characters in intriguing ways. Imagine if they tied the whole show together with the same level of quality that they gave the Rick Lantis mix-up. I think that it would have made a better piece of art, but I suppose that those ideas will need to stay in the realm of fan fiction. It's too bad. I have plenty of friends that bring up Gravity Falls every now and then. At this point, most of them regularly forget that new episodes of Rick and Morty even exist. Of course, maybe my perspective is wrong. Maybe the show remains as beloved as it was before. Maybe the fan base is as rabid as it was before. Leave a comment down below about what you think. I would love to hear your perspective on this matter. Is Rick and Morty better like this, or should they have had a plan to eventually bring it all to a conclusion? Thank you all so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, remember that I'll be self-publishing my novel, Dance of Frozen Death, at the start of 2023. I hope that you will check it out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.